Hey, what's up everyone? How's it going? This is Watch, and in this video we're doing a three-way comparison between the MacBook lineup of computers. So we're taking a look at the Air, the Pro, and the new 12-inch MacBook. So if you're undecided on figuring out which computer is best suited towards your personal needs and interests, let's go ahead and see which computer is best and which one is right for you. Now, in terms of the size comparisons between these three computers, ironically, the Air is actually the largest in terms of its overall footprint. The MacBook Pro is kind of in the middle, and obviously the 12-inch is the smallest. But in terms of thickness, it's also fairly impressive at measuring only about 13.1 millimeters in terms of its maximum thickness, versus we're looking at about 17 millimeters on the Air and about 18 millimeters on the Pro. Now, in terms of weight, the new 12-inch only measures about 920 grams, so just about 2 pounds, and that's substantially less than the other two computers. Now, I understand that you can still get the 11-inch MacBook Air, which is going to be around kind of the same dimension and overall weight as the 12-inch, but keep in mind that the 12-inch is a little bit more of a premium computer. It has that much better display and the brand new keyboard and trackpad, which we'll talk about in a second. Now, in terms of the ports and connectivity options, obviously the Pro is going to be the best in terms of the sheer variety of ports it has. The Air isn't too bad at all. You have pretty much all the ports that you would ever need for most of your casual day-to-day needs, and the 12-inch is pretty much barren. Basically, you only have a headphone jack and a USB Type-C connection, which is going to be fine for the future, but for the time being, you're going to have to buy a whole bunch of different adapters to make it work with your existing devices and hardware. Now, in terms of the webcams, both the Air and the Pro have the identical 720p front-facing FaceTime camera, and we have a 480p front-facing camera on the 12-inch, so it's definitely not as high in terms of resolution and clarity, but in terms of color rendition and low light, it's fairly similar. Now, in terms of the keyboard and trackpad, basically the new 12-inch introduces the new keyboard that we're going to see probably in the next generation MacBook Air and Pros. It's a very thin profile. It's using the butterfly mechanism switches compared to the scissor mechanism switches that we have on the Pro and Air, and basically that's going to give you a much thinner keyboard profile with less key travel as well. Now, I'm not a big fan of low profile keyboards, as you may have noted from my review, but the keyboard is something that you can definitely get used to, and eventually in the future you're going to see this keyboard on the future iterations of MacBook Air and Pro. Now, in terms of trackpad, the new Force Touch trackpad is available on the 13-inch MacBook Pro with Retina, as well as the 12-inch MacBook. Unfortunately, it's not available on the MacBook Air. If you want more information about the Force Touch trackpad, definitely check out the full review of the 12-inch MacBook that will be in the description down below. Now, in terms of displays, we're basically going to use Retina displays on the 12-inch and on the 13-inch MacBook Pro with Retina display. So in terms of resolution, on the 12-inch, we're looking at 2304 by 1440. The MacBook Pro has a resolution of 2560 by 1600, and we basically have a 1440 by 900 display on the MacBook Air. Now, in terms of PPI, we're looking at 127 PPI on the Air, about 226 PPI on the 12-inch, and about 227 PPI on the 13-inch MacBook Pro. So very similar pixel density and overall clarity that you're going to experience on the 12-inch and on the 13-inch Pro. And besides the actual resolution, one of the other things you're getting from a Retina display is actually the IPS technology, and what that does is give you better color rendition and much better viewing angles that you experience on the Air. Now, moving on, let's talk about the internal specs we have on all three of these computers. We basically have a 5th generation Intel Core i5 processor, both on the Air and the Pro. They're different processors in terms of models and spec, but they're clocked a little bit higher on the Pro compared to the Air, but the architecture is very similar, and they're using fairly similar graphics as well. Now, the 12-inch is using a new architecture. We're using the Intel Core M processor. It basically is clocked about 1.1 gigahertz, so a lot lower than the Pro and the Air, which is going to result in slower overall performance, especially if you do any kind of multimedia editing or any kind of CPU intensive applications and tasks. Now, in terms of RAM, we have 8 gigabytes from the stock line configuration, both on the Pro and on the 12-inch, and we have 4 gigabytes on the Air. You're going to have to pony up a couple of extra bucks to get the 8 gigabytes if you need it. But let's go ahead and take a look at the actual benchmark results we have on all three of these computers and see which one in real life is actually faster. Now, obviously, you would guess that the MacBook Pro would would be the fastest computer out of these three, and you'd be absolutely right. Based on our Geekbench 3 results, it's completely obliterating the 12-inch MacBook. And the Air isn't bad. It definitely balances kind of the performance with the battery life fairly well, and that's really nice to see. You can definitely do some little bit of Photoshop editing and things like that without having any major issues, but the single core and the multi-core processing is going to be faster on the Pro, as you would expect. Same thing goes for the Cinebench benchmark results, where we're getting significantly higher speeds on the MacBook Pro, and the Air is right in the middle. And in terms of web browsing performance, you would think that the 12-inch would be fairly good on this part, but again, based on our Peacekeeper web browsing speed test, the Pro is coming out on top by getting a significantly higher score than the other two. Keep in mind that all of the computers were tested on the same Wi-Fi networks using those Safari web browser. And in terms of the storage, the interesting thing is both the 2015 Air and Pro are using the new Flash PCIe-based memory, and we're using an older memory module on the 12-inch MacBook, or something that definitely doesn't perform as to the level as the other two, because basically we're getting around 80 to 90% faster read and write performance on the Air and the Pro compared to the 12-inch, which is kind of upsetting to see considering the price point that the 12-inch comes with. And you're seeing a pretty big difference when you're looking at the overall Blackmagic speed test based on our experience. Now, to test out our gaming and GPU performance, we're going to utilize Unigen's Heaven benchmark. We're going to set the resolution at 1280 by 800, medium quality settings, no anti-aliasing, and again, no surprise over here, the MacBook Pro comes out on top. It certainly has the faster overall GPU, so we're getting around 20 FPS average, and the MacBook Air is certainly not too far behind, so similar overall gaming performance on the 12-inch is getting around 12.7 average frames per second on the Heaven benchmark. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that I actually did a little bit of gaming on the 12-inch MacBook, and it wasn't too bad. Playing games like Minecraft and Dota, it was absolutely fine to set the resolution a little bit lower than 720p, and my gaming experience was fairly playable throughout most of the titles that I tested out with. Now, keep in mind that you can't really play any hardcore first-person shooters on the 12-inch or really any of these computers, especially at super high resolution. They're definitely not designed to do any kind of hardcore gaming on, but you can definitely game on it on a casual basis without having any major hiccups. Now, last but not least, we're going to talk about the battery performance we have on all three of these computers. You're looking around 29 watt hours on the 12-inch, about a 74.9 watt hour battery on the Pro, and about a 54 watt hour battery on the Air. Now, there's no question about it, the MacBook Air is going to give you the best overall battery performance. It has the best balance for performance and battery life, and you can even use it kind of at full screen brightness and have no problem getting throughout the day. Now, based on my personal experience, I average around 13 hours on the Air, about around 10-hour mark on the Pro, and around 8-hour 45 minutes based on my personal user habits on the 12-inch MacBook after a couple of days. So in most scenarios, when it comes to battery endurance, there's really not a lot that can compete with the MacBook Air in terms of what Apple can deliver, and the MacBook Pro isn't bad. We got actually another hour in the 2015 version compared to last year's version, and battery is something they're definitely going to have to work on in the next version of the 12-inch MacBook. But really, other than that, guys, that's really it. Definitely let me know on which computer you guys think has the most to offer for your personal needs and interests. Leave that on a comment down below. Give us a thumbs up if this video helped you out in any way, and definitely check out the full review of the computers in the description down below. Plus, you can go through our Amazon links, and it helps us support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it makes videos like this possible. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you later. Take care.